back to the special edition of Hannity, the 2020 election. President Trump is in Japan for the G20 summit, where he's attending a women's workforce session. If he says anything, we'll bring it to you live this hour. Switching gears, as we continue to peruse truth and justice and holding those that abuse power accountable, Democrats and their partners in the media mob are continuing to fuel more Mueller mania and impeachment fantasies. Take a look at this.
So let me tell you, we need somebody on our stage when it comes time for that general election who knows how to recognize a rap sheet when they see it and prosecute the case.
Governor Inslee.
The biggest threat to the security of the United States is Donald Trump, and there's no question.
A president who sought to obstruct the investigation into the invasion of our democracy. We must begin impeachment now so that we have the facts and the truth, and we follow them as far as they go.
And in the 2 nights of Democratic debates, there was not one question on the deep state abuse of power scandal. Not one question on FISA abuse, the dirty Steele dossier, or the use of secret informants to spy on Team Trump. Joining me now for reaction is Fox News contributor Sara Carter, Fox News legal analyst Gregg Jarrett, and Republican Congressman Andy Biggs. Greg, I'll go to you first. I think this Mueller appearance on July 17th has the potential to blow up spectacularly that Democrats face.
Yeah, it's a big mistake.
It's a huge mistake. One of the reasons is Mueller's report is written like an op-ed, not a serious legal document, and he leaves a lot of things out in there. One of them being one of the contacts he alleges is a Russian carve-out for Manafort. This guy Kalimnik was actually a source for the Obama State Department, too. Like, kind of an interesting point to bring up, no?
Yeah, he either concealed it or he deliberately tried to deceive the American public. And the same thing with Professor Massoud and George Papadopoulos. Massoud, it turns out, isn't a Russian agent at all. Right. Works for the British government, probably, and in turn the Americans as well. And then, of course, he takes John Dowd's telephone message and he edits it down to misrepresent that. Another place I found he completely misrepresented and invented a conversation involving Papadopoulos and Massoud, and he doesn't source it. He just made it up. He plucked it from his own imagination. So the report is frankly disappointing in so many ways. It's disorganized, contradictory, inconsistent, and it is so schizophrenic you'll get whiplash. It's almost a garbage document like the dossier. And what's frustrating about it, most of all, are the things he doesn't look into. If he's looking into Russian interference, how can you not look into Hillary Clinton paying for Russian disinformation and to interfere in the election? But there's none of that in there, or the dossier. There's nothing in there about Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS, Brenner and Clapper, all of them trying to interfere in the election by spreading Russian disinformation.
Sarah, I know you've been on this case like white on rice. And one of the things that bothers me is what Greg just said. His whole initial charter, Bob Mueller, was to investigate Russian interference in the election. And it's convenient how he goes through multiple pages talking about the Don Trump Jr. Trump Tower meeting with these 2 Russians. But Mueller fails to mention that the Russian lawyer was actually working for the company hired by Hillary Clinton. I mean, don't you think that's kind of a key point to bring up?
It's a huge point. So here you have Natalia Veselnitskaya, the Russian, right? The Russian lawyer who worked for Prevazon Holdings. She meets actually with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS the day before and the day after. And the day after that meeting, and Glenn Simpson's like, no, we didn't discuss the Trump Tower meeting at all. And so these are really significant questions that need to be answered. And let me tell you, Dan, I mean, the biggest point here is we're hearing all kinds of rumors about what Robert Mueller is going to be testifying about, how this is so significant on the part of the Democrats. This is total theater on the part of the Democrats because they are continuously, including Andrew McCabe, who's been on MSNBC over and over again, who was basically thrown out of the FBI for lying and fired by then Attorney General Jeff Sessions for being a liar, and the IG caught him lying multiple times and leaking information to the media. This is how they're trying to keep disinformation alive, by holding this hearing, which is theatrical, which is not going to resolve anything. And by the way, Robert Mueller really can't go outside the purview, and he shouldn't, outside the purview of his report. So there's a lot of questions here that need to be answered. And as you said, I believe the Republicans have the upper hand here because they can ask him questions that are very important, that he can answer, And there's a lot of questions that he can't. But remember, the Democrats are just trying to keep the rumor alive. It's just a rumor, and it's a lie, because they have absolutely no evidence of anything, or otherwise they would have used it.
Yeah, well, thanks to people like you, we know it's live. You've done some great work along with you, Greg. Your book is just amazing. Congressman Biggs, you're up there on the Hill. Are they committed to getting answers from Bob Mueller? I mean, one of the things that bothers me, too, about his report is not just the fact that he leaves out the $500,000 payment from a Russian bank to Bill Clinton. That's not in there at all. But also on the exculpatory evidence front with obstruction. Donald Trump actually told Jim Comey, according to his own memos, that he wanted him to investigate any people on his team who may have been satellites who may have been involved in this. Does that sound like obstruction to you? That's not in the report, by the way.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like obstruction. In fact, there wasn't any obstruction. And I think that Mr. Mueller knew it, but his team was radicalized. Don't forget, he had a radical team that was conducting this investigation. And so they come out, and he's, I don't know Bob Mueller from Adams Fox, but I can tell you this. The reality is Mr. Mueller put out a report that is not a legal brief at all. He should never have done it in the first place. But second of all, it is basically an opinion piece. But what's going to happen, I think this is going to look a lot like the Hope Hicks interview. That is, you had Democrats reading or asking her to read direct quotes from the Mueller report, and Hope Hicks would say, well, yeah, that was my statement. That's what you're going to get when the Democrats go to Mueller. You're not going to get anything new from the Democrats. In fact, Chairman Nadler's already said, hey, we're going to probably have them just read things. This is designed to keep up their narrative of something that happened, that there was an obstruction of justice, that somehow, just like you heard in the debate last night, somehow the president's guilty of something. There is nothing here, and they know it. They can't get him on anything that's criminal, so they're going to just attack and try to sully his name with these consistent rumors that they've been putting out from day one.
Greg, I think one of the key questions to ask Bob Mueller is when exactly did you find out that this collusion was a hoax? I mean, Weissman, his pit bull, as they call him, he knew in August of 2016 that the dossier had serious issues. When did Mueller find that? Is that not the key question?
Within a matter of months of his appointment, May 17, 2016. In fact, John Dow, the president's lawyer, places it around November, December of 2017. And there was a meeting on March 5th, 2018, a full year before the report comes out, in which, according to Dowd, Mueller admits that the president has no criminal exposure over collusion. So, Mr. Mueller, why didn't you issue an interim report? Isn't it true that you wanted to keep this going to influence unduly the 2018 interim elections so that Democrats could take over the House? And I think that's a legitimate question to ask. Also, Mueller interviewed with the president the day before he took the job as special counsel, sitting in the Oval Office. Isn't it true, Mr. Mueller, that you and the president actually discussed the reason that Comey was fired, which makes you a witness in your own case on the obstruction investigation?
Sara, just a quick last word from you. Is the Kavalek-Steele interview, the Kathleen Kavalek from the State Department, where she meets with the dossier, with the guy in the interview, and the information is all garbage, is that going to come into play in this Mueller hearing? Because that information, Kavalek took notes on it, and it's all discredited. Do you think that comes up at all?
Oh, absolutely. I think the Republicans will swoop right in on that and ask questions about that. I think this is significantly important. And those emails and those exchanges and Victoria Nuland with the State Department and what she knew are going to come up, because at that point in time, everybody knew, and they questioned this dossier, which was fed to us basically by a foreign intelligence officer from MI6, Christopher Steele, who took a ton of this information from the Russians. And now what we're discovering is that people like Joseph Mifsud, who Greg brought up, was working for Italian and British intelligence, and we're the ones who work with them. So now we need to ask John Brennan as well. What did you know, John Brennan? How were you involved in this, and where did this investigation begin? Well, John Brennan's in a world of trouble, because that Gang of Eight briefing he gave, remember, there were notes on that, and that information was only from Steele. So he's in a world of trouble. Sara, Greg, Congressman Biggs, thank you so much.